Let's go straight over to my brilliant guest for the first hour. She is, of course, Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good evening. Did you listen to Kemi's speech today?
I listened to bits of it, but I mean, honestly, it's just a sideshow now. It really, I think the saddest thing about, as I keep saying, about this conference, it's in this big Manchester auditorium, and halfway in the middle of the auditorium, they had to hang a big black curtain because they couldn't fill the entire auditorium. Yeah. And even then, we saw ministers, you know, shadow ministers, shadow secretaries of state, Kemi Badenoch, barely able to fill the seats that were there. And, you know, she said, oh, I'll get stamp duty. I mean, in the end, so what? You're not getting in. You're not getting in. It doesn't really matter what they're saying anymore. In a little while, Isabel, we do need to talk about synagogue killer Jihad Al-Shamie's 999 call, a very sinister call, you know, citing ISIS, you know, and Allah and all that. Now, in itself, it's a fascinating call. It's a sinister call that he made to 999. But the question is why are we only finding it out now, 6 days afterwards? Is this all part of Keir Starmer's apparent campaign to quash the fact that the perpetrator of this atrocity, these murders at a Jewish synagogue, was a Muslim, was an Islamist terrorist? Is that why we're only finding this out now? I think it is. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, let's talk about what I think is our big story of the night. It's extraordinary, this. Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, was sort of gotcha'd the other day, not very well, I didn't think, by The Guardian. They had a recording of him back in March talking to a Conservative association in which he lamented the lack of integration in some of our communities around the country. He'd been to the Birmingham district of Handsworth, walked around it for an hour and a half. He was doing a feature on litter, apparently, and he said he never saw another white face. And he said it's not about the colour of the skin, it was just the sheer shocking lack of integration here. Whole communities living parallel lives, as he put it. Now, we are going to show you now, and the audience, a video that I think underlines that what Robert Jenrick is saying is something that we must talk about. This is a very serious situation, and we mustn't let the Guardianistas of this land slap down this, stamp on this debate by calling us all racists, by calling Robert Jenrick a racist and a bigot, encouraging the flames of nationalism. That's what they do. I mean, we need to have this debate. So, let's talk about the mayor of Rotherham. She is a Muslim lady named Councillor Rukhsana Ismail. Now, she was invited to talk to a group of people at a Muslim centre. It was called the Pakistan Muslim Centre, funnily enough, in Sheffield. And you'll see now that in the audience, hundreds, it's a massive place, hundreds and hundreds of men, just men. And in fact, the Lord Mayor of Rotherham, she's been the Lord Mayor of Rotherham since May, Rukhsana Ismail, is the only woman in the entire auditorium. To be fair to her, she does lament this. But we are talking about integration. This is what happened in the city of Sheffield as the elected mayor of Rotherham addressed this throng. Have a look at this. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mere bhai, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you all hear me in the back? आवाज सुनी? अच्छा. सबसे पहले शुक्रिया अदा करनी है तो सारे इतने वक्त निकाल के इठा आए हो माशाल्लाह. बड़ी खुशी हुई तकीता कि कैसे सारे इकट्ठा एक ही मकसद हस्ता है माशाल्लाह. दूसरी बात अफसोस है कि कैसे सिर्फ औरत सिर्फ एक मैं ही हूं. असल में मामा पहना की थे यहाँ कायदे आज़म मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना फरमाया था असल मुल्क तरक्की नहीं कर सकना जब तक औरत साथ ना चला है. असल ये मावा पहना नाल असना अगे जनरेशन चलना नस्ला चलनियां असल ये औरतां की दुनिया इस वक्त. That's in Britain. That's the city of Sheffield. That's a group of British people. Isabel, to be fair to Mayor Rukhsana Ismail, she'll be Mayor of Rotherham until next year, by the way. She was elected in May, as I just said. She was actually complaining to this sort of sea of men, saying, you know, why should I be the only woman here? She said, I feel regret because there is only one woman here. What are we doing about our mothers, our sisters? Our nation cannot progress until women walk side by side with men. Well, that's a good sentiment, good for her. But what worries me about this is an elected official, a mayor of a major town, addressing that huge audience in Urdu and Punjabi. It's a mixture of the two, both Pakistani languages. That place is called the Pakistan Muslim Centre. Where the hell is the integration there, Isabel?
I mean, I do think this video is quite shocking. Of course, it's only a clip and we don't know what else was said in that whole meeting. And I'm really glad that we had it translated, because here's the thing, you know, you and I don't speak Urdu, and I really don't expect our elected representatives in this country to deliver speeches in a foreign language. This is the UK, after all. She, as far as I'm concerned, forgive my ignorance, she could have been saying anything. And that's the concern, that when people are making political speeches in our country in another language that is not, it's not English, we don't know what kind of propaganda is being belted out. Now, in this case, good for her. She was looking at that sea of men and going, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, hey guys, where are the women here? You know, this doesn't feel right to me. And good for her. She's obviously a trailblazer in her community. She was the lady in that room. She may have been the only woman there. She was the one with the power. But what does it say about what has happened in these parts of the UK? That there is a situation where a whole hall of men have to be addressed in a foreign language and have to be told or encouraged to understand that women should have an equal part in our society. Why have we got whole communities that don't seem to consider women of equal status? And I hardly need to bring up now the link between the Pakistani community and the systematic and industrial scale abuse of mainly young white British girls. You know, all of this links together, doesn't it? Attitudes to women in these communities where values are very different to our own. So I do think this is a shocking video. It's been quite difficult to get a timestamp on it, but the point is she's a fairly recently appointed mayor, and she's in a position of power and influence, and this is what we're dealing with. And Robert Jenrick is absolutely right to highlight it. There's nothing racist about saying I feel a bit strange that I'm the only person with white skin in this area in Britain, any more than it's entirely right that lady should say, well, what's going on here, folks? I'm the only woman in a sea of brown men who I'm addressing in a foreign language.
Yeah, I think the other point she should be making, she says, she goes on to say, by the way, in Punjabi and Urdu, if our generations are to continue our lineage to move forward, what are we doing about our women at this time? I want to request all my brothers and elders, please encourage your mothers and sisters to take part. It's not necessary that they stand on the stage and speak. That's the only way, but their support is very important. Good sentiments. I think she should also be saying, why the hell are we all speaking in a foreign language? Why are we speaking as if we're in Pakistan? Why is this place in Sheffield called the Pakistan Muslim Centre? This is an affront to integration. This is exactly what Jenrick is talking about, and this is exactly why, especially across the north, we have a massive problem with integration.
Absolutely. And, you know, there are areas of our country where the politics of Pakistan are played out on the streets of Britain. And it affects the way people are voting in, for example, local government elections. You know, you've got people campaigning in parts of the north virtually on a kind of Pakistani party ticket. I mean, this is really, really unhealthy. Unhealthy is putting it politely. You know, it appears that we have been so tolerant as a society, that word tolerance that you and I you know, find rather tiresome. We've been so tolerant that we've allowed whole separate kind of groups to build up that are basically a kind of outpost of their country of origin within our country and operating under different sets of rules and values. And we could talk about Sharia law and a bunch of other things under this category. But this is serious, and people, it has reached a tipping point. And, you know, this isn't new as such. Of course, it's been building for a whole number of years. But I think that gets to a point, it's the whole boiled frog thing, where it becomes a tipping point, and people are getting very, very, very worried about it, and rightly so.
And we should do. We reached out to Rukhsana Ismail's office, obsessively, to be honest with you, to get an explanation. And in the end, we got a rather surly one-line reply saying this was not a mayoral engagement. As well, so we weren't asking that. This woman, Mayor Rukhsana Ismail, to be fair to her, she has been at the centre of an unfair, untrue reports that she couldn't, when she was elected mayor, that she can't speak English. In fact, she was born in Birmingham. Her family moved to Yorkshire, and of course she could speak English. It's her native tongue. But I would say to Mayor Rukhsana Ismail that you're going to get stories like this written about you if you go round addressing massive great throngs of hundreds of men speaking Urdu and Punjabi. You know, you're going to get this. You know, the question you should be asking yourself, Rukhsana, is, yes, you're quite right. Why are there only men here? Why am I the only woman? Then your next question should be, and why are we all speaking in Punjabi and Urdu? That is a massive problem. Let's move on to, well, I'm going to play you some, it's sort of semi-linked this is, but it's just some interesting footage of the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Again, not speaking English. Have a look at this.
लोगों को डरा रहे हैं कि जो है ना ये सादिक खान ये मुसलमान है ये पाकिस्तानी है इसको वोट नहीं दे अगर मैं पाकिस्तानी नहीं था अगर मैं मुसलमान नहीं था तो ये कभी ये नई बातें कहते हैं ये कह रहे हैं कि the Islamification of the UK और जो लफ्ज़ इस्तेमाल करते हैं ना लंदनिस्तान ये यहाँ मुसलमान स्लीपर सेल्स हैं बहुत ख़तरनाक है क्योंकि देखिए ये अफसोस की बात है और काफ़ी ख़तरनाक है कि ये जो कंजर्वेटिव पार्टी है ये जो कंस्पिरेसी थ्योरीज ये एम्पलीफाई कर रहे हैं ये अनफेयर ट्रूथ्स हैं इस्लाम के मुतालिक और ये स्लर्स हैं इस्लाम के मुतालिक मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ अगर मैं पाकिस्तानी नहीं था अगर मैं मुसलमान नहीं था तो ये कभी ये नई बातें कहते हैं और ये जो कंस्पिरेसी ये है कि मुस्लिम्स आर टेकिंग ओवर लंदन ये कह रहे हैं कि the Islamification of the UK और जो लफ्ज़ इस्तेमाल करते हैं ना लंदनिस्तान.
Now, at this point, we're not in any way criticising Mayor Khan for speaking. He's speaking in Urdu there. We're not criticising him because he's being interviewed by Pakistani media, so that's fair enough. But what he was responding to was a couple of years ago when Lee Anderson said, you know, London is turning into Londonistan and the Muslims are taking over and so on and so forth. So if we translate what Mayor Khan was saying there, he's saying people are being misled. They're being told don't vote for Sadiq Khan, he's a Muslim, he's Pakistani. But if I wasn't Pakistani, if I wasn't Muslim, they wouldn't be saying these things. I'm not sure about this. He goes on to say they talk about the so-called Islamification of the UK and use words like Londonistan. These labels, Muslim paper sellers and so on, are extremely dangerous. He goes on to say, look, this is truly sad and quite dangerous. This conspiracy party, these conspiracy theories. They amplify false realities about Islam. They spread lies about Islam. I'm telling you, if I wasn't Pakistani, if I wasn't Muslim, they would never say these things. And this conspiracy that Muslims have taken over London, they're calling London Londonistan, Londonistan. You're going on and on and on about Islam, on and on and on about Islam. I'll be fair, I don't think he's a player of the race card, but he doesn't, did you see recently his hilarious bingo racism attack on Donald Trump, calling him every name in the socialist handbook, racist, Islamophobic, sexist, misogynistic, and so on and so forth. He plays that, but I'll be fair to Khan, I don't think he plays the race card about himself often, but it does look as if he's playing to the Pakistani media here and playing the race card about himself in this instance.
Yeah, it's a bit vainglorious, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit me, and all this is about me. And actually, you know what? If Sadiq Khan wasn't Mayor of London, I mean, I regret that he is, but even if he wasn't Mayor of London, I don't think we'd all be suddenly thinking there hasn't been a massive demographic, cultural, and ethnic shift in London. I mean, it just is a fact. And you can make of that what you will, but there's no denying it. And it's not some anti-Sadiq Khan thing. I mean, there are plenty of very good reasons to be anti-Sadiq Khan. He didn't create Londonistan. Londonistan was brewing for a long time before he became mayor. But obviously, it sort of cements or solidifies the feeling that that's what's happened, and it isn't just a feeling, it's a reality.
Indeed, and we might refer to Sheffield at the moment as Sheffieldistan, after we just saw that video of the mayor talking to that huge congregation, if that was what it was, that huge throng anyway, of just men in Urdu and Punjabi. I mean, that's what we have to worry about. We really, really do. Let me know, folks, what you think about that video, because I think it cuts right to the heart of what Robert Jenrick was saying. And, to bring this sort of thing up and then be told you're racist, you're bigoted, you're glorifying nationalism, that's what the lefties do. They do this to shut down a debate that we have to have. I don't think it's healthy that we have scenes that we just saw in that video in Sheffield at the Pakistan Muslim Centre. Why is it called that? It's in Sheffield. Why are they talking Punjabi? Why are they talking Urdu? We need to talk about this, don't we? What do you think, folks? 03444991000. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about our friend Jihad Al-Shamie, the synagogue killer. And they finally released his 999 call. He actually called 999 to let them know what was going on or what he was about to do. Only now we find out the text. I'll tell you what the text is, and we'll ask why they took 6 days to tell us. That next, stay tuned. Welcome back. Just before we get to the next story, I've had a text from Richard in West Yorkshire saying, that the lady mayor felt strange being the only woman in there. And he goes on to say she should have said her piece in Pakistani and then carried on in English for the rest of the speech, however long it took, just to see how these foreign men, how long they stayed before they got bored. You're missing the point, Richard. They're not foreign men, they're British. And yet there they are in a hall in Sheffield called the Pakistan Muslim Centre, speaking Punjabi and Urdu. They're British, they're not foreign men, and yet they're speaking a foreign language. That is the whole point, you see. I'll read out Richard's full text a little later. But respect, Richard, but you're sort of missing the point. These are British people. These are British men not speaking English, and that's exactly what Robert Jenrick's talking about. Now, I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, this just cropped up. This just was released. The police have now released or details of the 999 call placed by Jihad Al-Shamie before he launched his murderous attack on the synagogue last Thursday. This is what the spokesman for counter-terrorism policing Northwest said. We can confirm that in the initial stages of the attack outside the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue, a call was made by the attacker to police claiming to pledge allegiance to the so-called Islamic State. So before he went ahead and started killing people or trying to kill people, launching that terrorist attack, he phoned 999 and he pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. Now, I think that's the sort of thing they should have told us a long time ago. Why have they waited 6 days to tell us this? Do you think it plays into exactly what Keir Starmer and the Labour cabinet have been doing to this day, that none of them, not a single one of them, including Keir Starmer, have conceded, have said that the person who attacked the synagogue was a Muslim maniac, was an Islamist terrorist? They keep saying to us, this was a dreadful attack on Jews just because they were Jews. Yeah, Keir, we know that. Who did the attack? Who committed this atrocity? When are they going to say this? And now we found out 6 days afterwards, the police concede to tell us that he'd pledged his allegiance to the Islamic State. Why do they keep covering this stuff up? It's a disgrace.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, here's the other thing. To the best of my knowledge, they've not released the recording of the 999.
They haven't, no.
So I think that's pretty suspicious because, I mean, the guy's dead, so there's none of this nonsense about
subjudice and affecting a trial. Exactly.
I mean, you and I both on the same page on that. That stuff has all gone way too far. That whole thing about, oh, we can't tell you this, we can't tell you that because it might prejudice a trial, has just become a ridiculous excuse to keep everybody in the dark about things that might upset the apple cart. So in this case, there is no such excuse, even if it were a justified excuse. The guy's dead. I'd like to know more about that 999 call. And if there's nothing more to it, how about they just release it? 999 recordings are quite often and routinely released as part of evidence in trials by prosecution or by the defence. Nothing unusual about that. Yeah. So just play it to us, why don't you? And then we can be sure what was said. Yeah. I just have a little suspicion that there's something that they don't want us to know about that call.
Yeah, and I would sympathise if they took a couple of days to tell us, as the dust settles in the chaos of the aftermath of the horror. Fair enough, it's not going to be the first thing the police do is release the 999 call. But why 6 days? Why 6 days? And gee, what a coincidence that Keir Starmer's out of the country right now in India. Yeah. When is anyone from this damn cabinet, from this Labour cabinet, when is our Prime Minister, when is our Home Secretary, one of them going to concede, is going to actually declare that the person who committed this atrocity on innocent Jews at the synagogue was a Muslim maniac, was an Islamist terrorist? None of them have said that, and that is a disgrace. It's a scandal.
Yeah. I'm going to stick my neck out a bit here and say that I think that in that call, it's just me, pure speculation on my part, but it's an educated guess, that as well as, quote, pledging allegiance to Islamic State, he said something pretty reprehensible about Jewish people. That's my guess, that he said something very inflammatory about the Jewish community or something along those lines, and that the authorities don't want us to know about that because they think it'll upset things still further. And I'm just not sure that works, because that into that vacuum, as always, comes speculation. Here I am speculating. Yeah. And this government has been told before, in the wake of the Axel Ruder Cabana cover-ups, they've been told, look, just release as much as you can, because otherwise people naturally put two and two together, and quite often we get it right. We get 4, but sometimes we put 2 and 2 together and get 4.5 or 5, and that's not good.
Well, my speculation about what may be on this 99 call, the full text, will be that it will be full of content that will heap sort of odium on the Muslim community. He'll be full of stuff where people will not like Islam because of it. It'll be that will be half the reason as well, would be my theory, but we don't know that. But the main thing is, why 6 days? And why wait until Keir Starmer's out of the country? And for God's sake, will one of these cowards in the Labour cabinet actually concede, actually say who did this? It's an absolute disgrace that none of them will say this. You know, we see them, don't we? It's so obvious, so obvious.
And anyway, what are they afraid of?
I know, they're afraid of losing the Muslim vote, aren't they?
I know, but the Muslim vote, it doesn't support this type of behaviour.
That's what I would have thought.
Extreme form of Islam. It doesn't represent 99.999% of Muslims in the UK, or indeed the rest of the world. You know, this isn't normal Islam. This is warped. This is sick. And you know, if the government is afraid that revealing that for what it is will lose them votes, that says an awful lot about the type of people they really think are in our country.
Well, they are afraid. They're afraid of alienating, upsetting the Islamic community in this country because they want the Muslim vote. I suspect they pretty much lost it already. That's the joke. It's the same reason that Keir Starmer recognised Palestine, because he wants the Muslim vote, and so on and so forth. Recognising Palestine, many Jews, and I agree with them, feel led to what happened last Thursday. So thanks a lot, Mr. Starmer. Listen, we better go to break now, and when we come back, we're going to squeeze two stories together. They don't really fit together, but we're going to have to do it due to reasons of time. So that next, everyone, stay tuned. Welcome back. Still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, we'll have to race through these two stories. As I say, they don't really join up, but let's do our best. The first one I want to talk about quickly, because I think it warrants discussion. After the campaign for anti-Semitism, against anti-Semitism last week, condemned the BBC for its moral collapse and its failure still to classify or to call Hamas terrorists. It called it out for clear anti-Israel bias and said that the BBC, the state broadcaster, has become little more than spokespeople for Hamas. Well, today we've learned that in an internal memo to staff about how they were going to, the BBC was going to sort of mark the 2-year anniversary since the October the 7th horror, that atrocity, the murder, the rape, the burning, the beheading of babies, 1,200 Jews slaughtered, massacred in the most horrific way, the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. An internal memo to BBC staff said something along the lines of, it is now 2 years since the escalation in the Israel-Palestine conflict. The Israel-Gaza. It's now 2 years since that. They called it an escalation. They have since issued a grovelling apology and said we shouldn't have called it that. But isn't that a window into the tortured, I'm going to say it, the tortured anti-Semitic soul of the BBC? What has happened to our state broadcaster?
I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Who thought that escalation was a way of describing it? I mean, yes, things have escalated pretty dramatically, as you might imagine they would if people went on a murderous spree of innocent...
But they actually called the horror itself, the massacre, they called that an escalation in the conflict. It's a bit more than an escalation, isn't it?
As you say, inexplicable, except... until you consider the mindset of so many of the people that work for the BBC, and then perhaps you can begin to have some sort of sense of why they think like that. I don't know. It's pretty offensive, isn't it? I mean, I'm not easily offended, but it's pretty offensive.
Yeah, here we go. This is what the memo actually said. As we reach the 2-year anniversary of the escalations in the Israel-Gaza conflict, we asked UK audiences what they want and need from news coverage going forward. How about just a scintilla of impartiality? How about an end to the BBC's rabid anti-Israel prejudice? How about that? A spokesman for the Beeb said, this internal staff email should have been worded differently, and we're sorry for any offence caused. I mean, it's unbelievable. Well, the sadness is it's believable. The BBC, as the Campaign Against Antisemitism said in that powerful statement they released last Thursday after the Synagogue attack, they were blaming all sorts of elements of society for this explosion of Jew hatred that's going on, and they accused the BBC of a moral collapse, incredible bias, and that has reduced them to little more than spokespeople for Hamas, whom they still refuse to call terrorists. It's just a disgrace. So now we're moving on, as they say, to something quite different. Lenny Henry. Lenny Henry. He's 67 years old. As I said in my monologue, he's supposed to be a comedian, but finally, after all these years, he's finally said something funny. He's written a book called The Big Payback, in which he demands that he's written it with some mate of his called Marcus. That doesn't really matter. I should imagine most of his friends are probably called things like Marcus, aren't they? Or Lenny and Marcus, they demand that Britain pays £18 trillion in reparations to the Caribbean nations where British plantation owners used slave labour there hundreds of years ago. We pay them, those grifting nations, we give them a load of money. But also, and this is the doozy, he wants us, the rest of us taxpayers, to hand every black person in this country massive great amounts of financial compensation, loads of money, to compensate them for slavery in the Caribbean. As I say, Lenny Henry has never been very funny, but this is funny, and it's virtue signalling, showbiz, lovey, claptrap on a very different scale, on another level, isn't it? What a load of rubbish.
Isn't it just a sort of desperate attempt to get some publicity? I mean, he can't be serious. He's obviously not
serious. He's serious.
I don't think he can be serious. I mean, this is just absolutely ludicrous. Yeah. I mean, it's more than the GDP of China, I think someone pointed out. I mean, it's just not... None of it's going to happen. I mean, I don't think there should be a penny in so-called reparations, never mind trillions of pounds or pennies or anything else. This is a complete non-starter. I don't know how it's ever managed to get up any kind of momentum, the whole slavery reparations. Unfortunately, some in our own government have actually given it a bit of airtime in the past. I think David Lammy hasn't exactly shut down this debate, has he?
No, well, exactly. No, he's quite keen on the idea. I just think the entire concept is symptomatic of the derangement that grips modern virtue signalling society, that we're supposed to hand billions of pounds, trillions of pounds to people for, shall we say, slavery sins committed 300 years ago. Nobody, there's a phrase in the Bible, isn't there? There's something that the sins of the father shouldn't be visited on the sons. Why don't they read that? Why don't they read that and take note? Of course they shouldn't. We don't have to make amends for what our fathers, not our fathers, our great-great-great-great-great-grandparents did. It's ridiculous. And Lenny, I'm not surprised, but this is just loony Lenny nonsense, isn't it?
I mean, I'm much more interested in reparations from China for COVID. We now know beyond any reasonable doubt that COVID started in China, and almost certainly from some appalling experiment that they were doing in one of their sinister laboratories. That is far more topical. I mean, it is literally the fault of people who are alive now rather than ancient ancestors. And the cost to the rest of the world was absolutely gargantuan. So yeah, I'm all in for that debate. Reparations from the Chinese. Not got any interest in talking about.
Yeah, because that's recent, that's fair enough. I'm going to demand that Lenny Henry, Sir Lenny Henry, pays me millions of pounds reparations in compensation for boring me to tears and not being funny over about 5 decades. How about that? What do you think? Lenny, you got my number. I'll give you my bank details, all right? Let's go to break, and when we come back, talking of comedy, we'll talk about what I think is kind of the sort of tragicomic demise of the Tory party. What is the point of them anymore? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned, folks. Welcome back. Well, as the barely noticed Conservative conference in Manchester sort of fizzled out, and not with a bang but a whimper, the captain of the Titanic, the current leader of the Tory party, Kemi Badenoch, made her big speech today. And it was something about abandoning or scrapping stamp duty, all very interesting. But, I mean, anything these people say now, I don't think really matters, because we all know, realistically, I don't think we're going to see them in government ever again. They seem to think that they will be, but, 14 years of betrayal of Conservative values, by metropolitan elites like David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, with their kind of Labour-light lunacy, their migration madness, their net zero stupidity. Conservatives all over the country, particularly in the shires, traditional Tories, looking at these people saying, why don't they do what we want to do? Why don't they listen to us? Why are they just acting like a Labour Party? What's the matter with them? And of course their big migrant crisis, betrayal, they'll never be forgiven for that. It's quite clear. But Kemi got tetchy today when she was cornered by Sky News' Beth Rigby, and was asked about her bête noire. Nigel Farage, have a look.
But we can't beat them simply by attacking them. As George Bernard Shaw said, never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty, and the pig likes it.
Well, Isabel, we'll do the Farage bit in a minute, but her talking about pigs must have interested you a little bit, and probably David Cameron as well. Explain.
Yeah, I don't think former Prime Minister David Cameron will thank Kemi Badenoch for bringing up pig images. After all, his own image and reputation has never quite recovered from so-called Piggate, and that is 10 years on. So yeah, he's not going to be too happy with that.
Just explain what you revealed in your excellent book, exactly. Well, without going into total detail.
It's a long time ago now, but many of our listeners will probably remember #Piggate, which was a social media sensation at a time when social media was only really just taking off, and it was the suggestion from a very credible source that David Cameron at Oxford University had taken part in a rather lurid initiation ceremony
involving a pig's head. Yeah.
Involving a pig's head. And we don't need to go into any more details than that. He's never really lived it down. I mean, I know he basically has never forgiven either myself or Lord Ashcroft, who was the other author and the main sponsor of that book, for that particular story. It was only a couple of paragraphs in a book of 120,000 words, but it's the main thing that anyone's ever remembered about it, unfortunately. Yeah. It's a really serious piece of work, that biography, but all anyone wanted to talk about was Piggate, which raged in the media for about 5 weeks. Well, it was the money shot. It's what sold the book. So anyway, he deserves it. He's one of the ruiners of the Tory dream, to be honest with you. Let's not forget that Tory
actually means pig as well. So the whole pig allusion was not a good idea on Kemi's part. She got very snappy with Beth Rigby when they talked about Nigel Farage. Do you know one thing that really annoys me? I'm sure it does you. When politicians, Beth said something along the lines of, you know, Nigel Farage, what do you think about him? Don't these people, Kemi Badenoch, don't they get media training? Don't turn round to a journalist and say, what you should be asking me is this. Because the journalist then will be at your throat. And Beth did go for her. But all in all, tiny crowds, big curtain down the middle of the auditorium because they didn't need the whole auditorium. You saw shadow secretary after shadow secretary speaking to tiny audiences, little ripples of applause. It was a sad, sad spectacle. I'll just play you now. We've just got it ready now. This is Beth Rigby and Kemi sort of clashing about Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage is a politician.
On what basis?
Do you admire him?
I don't understand your question.
Well, it's just an open question. What do you think of him?
Why aren't you asking if I admire Keir Starmer or Ed Davey?
Well, I asked Keir Starmer about whether he admired Nigel Farage as well.
And I think it's very interesting that a lot of the media in Westminster is very interested about asking about Nigel Farage. I'm not interested in Nigel Farage. I'm interested in I'm not interested in talking about Nigel Farage. You tell me that people aren't interested in me. I'm on your show. Ask me about what I think. You spend most of the interview asking about reform. Reform's already had their conference.
Is it making you cross that I'm doing this? Because you seem irritated.
No, it isn't. I just think that your viewers want to know what I'm offering.
As I say, Isabel, media training urgently required. She must have had a lot, but she obviously didn't pay attention. Never do that to a journalist, but I think it's symptomatic of what we saw in this conference. It's just the dying embers, I think, of a dying party. I really, really do. In the middle of all the exhibits was that very sad threesome of Margaret Thatcher's favourite 3 outfits, and you suddenly thought, well, there's the spectre of Margaret Thatcher. God bless her soul. She'll be turning in her grave at what she's seeing here. But what it is that the people of this country, the people who used to vote Tory, will not forgive this lot for their betrayal. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that was a car crash of an interview. And how could she not be interested in Nigel Farage? It doesn't mean you have to like him. But if she's not interested in Nigel Farage, she might as well give up and go home because she needs to get interested in why he and his party are very, very much more popular than her own. And if she's not interested in what it is that leader is doing better than she is, then how is she ever going to make a winning prospectus? And I think our answer is that she isn't. It's been a dismal affair. She's tried very hard to make the best of it. But, you know, what was needed from her today was not just another recycled speech stringing together the usual phrases from behind a lectern. She needed to come out and do something completely different this time.
And all she manages with a rather dull thing about stamp duty. And just very quickly before you go, I haven't got long, but 20 Conservative councillors yesterday defected to Reform, and also down in London Assembly, a guy called Keith Prince, a leading light of the London Assembly. He's been a Tory party member for nearly half a century, 50 years. He too defected to Reform. It's all over by the shouting, isn't it?
It is, and if you've got a leader who, when their back's right against the wall as it is now, makes a speech in which they feel the need to refer to the magic money tree.
Yeah.
You know, come on, guys. I've heard that phrase for the last 10 years. You know, what was needed was some real creativity. She should have come down on a trapeze or something.
And we didn't get it. We didn't get it. Isabel, great to talk to you.